How do you know if she's interested? How can you tell if she's flirting with you? Well, pay attention to her body talk or her nonverbal communication. There are some universal patterns of female flirting. There's the bold to bashful look. The girl smiles at her admirer and lifts her eyebrows in kind of a swift, jerky motion as she opens her eyes wide to gaze at you. Then she drops her eyelids, tilts her head down and to the side, and looks away. Frequently, she also covers part of her face with her hands, maybe laughing a little nervously as she retreats behind her palms. Now that's fundamental, but a variation on this is the coy look. This is a gesture in which the girl cocks her head and looks up shyly at you. Female possums do this too, so female humans aren't the only ones. Animals frequently toss their heads, in fact, in order to solicit attention. Some girls are bold enough to hold your stare for 2 or 3 seconds, so if you notice this and you notice her pupils dilating, that's a sign of interest. Scientists call that the copulatory gaze, but when a person is interested or aroused, the pupils dilate, letting more light in and allowing them to see clearly and gather more information. So look at her eyes. Are they open and wide, attentive? Is her mouth open a little bit as well, lips parted? It's like the expression you see on the face of a child with a new toy who opens his mouth to take it all in. Another sign to look out for is if she raises her shoulders, arches her back, and tosses her hair, all in a single sweeping motion. The chest thrust. That's part of a basic postural message used across the animal kingdom. When animals seeking attention stand tall. Dominant creatures tend to puff up. Men and women both swell in order to signal importance and approachability. So these are universal courting cues that are part of the standard human repertoire of gestures that evolved to attract a mate. They'll come to feel natural to you eventually, and once you've mastered noticing those and giving those cues yourself, you can start to look for some additional signs of interest. Attention-getting movement. A guy will stand upright to feature his height and shift his weight, swaying from foot to foot. You can also embellish your gestures a bit so that small gestures become whole body gestures. You can use props to make yourself more approachable and establish significance, and also give you something to do with your hands if you're feeling nervous. Mix it up by using everyday items or unusual or offbeat items. They elicit curiosity. Just keep in mind that if your item is too bizarre, it might have the opposite of the intended effect. Now, you've seen those guys with swagger. Well, swagger with caution, because with some guys it looks authentic and like they've earned it, whereas with other guys, they just look like posers. You know the ones I'm talking about. Too much swagger or false swagger will actually repel women. Now, girls don't really swagger, but they have something else that's magically attention-getting with guys. It's called high heels. High heels have been around since the 1500s, and they automatically force a woman to walk with an arched back and a thrust-out chest. They give the wearer a tilt of the buttocks and a sway of the hips. So now you know why you like them so much. What about the moment of recognition? This is where your eyes meet. She acknowledges this by shifting her body slightly. If she shifts toward you or the shift opens her up, she's probably interested. If she shifts away or the shift closes her off, she's probably not. Let's talk about talk. Girls' voices will become higher, softer, and more sing-songy, similar to tones that express affection to kids or concern for those in need when they're talking to guys they like. So pay attention to the tone and timbre of her voice for clues that she's interested. Not sure what to talk about? Lead with a compliment or a question. Both require a response, so she'll be prompted to talk to you in order to be polite. If a woman laughs at your stories and your jokes a little more than the situation calls for, she's probably flirting with you, so watch for that as well. What about touch and body proximity? If she leans forward, rests her arm towards you, or moves her foot closer, she's showing signs of interest. So notice which direction also her shoulders point and where her pelvis points. If there are several people that she's talking to, or if she's interested in just one person but kind of stuck talking to another, her pelvis will be the better indicator of where her real interest lies. She can keep her shoulders sort of turned to the person she doesn't want to be rude to, but her lower half of her body, that tells the truth. If she strokes her own arm, or if she touches you on the arm, on the wrist, or some other socially acceptable part, these are other signs of interest. So follow her lead on touching. Now, women don't all have the same comfort level with touch. Keep this in mind. Flirtatious touching should be casual but calculated and with an intention to it. There's also this concept called total body synchrony. This is where, before long, she's bobbing and tilting and gazing and swaying and smiling and flirting in time with you. You're setting the rhythm. At this point, she's pivoted or swiveled her shoulders, and they're aligned or on the same plane as yours, and your bodies are kind of squared. When you lift your drink, she lifts hers. When you cross your legs, she crosses hers. As you lean left, she leans left. You mirror each other, essentially. Scientists call this interactional synchrony, and it's a pattern played out again by all animals. When this happens, give yourself an internal high five, because if she's following your rhythm, you've built a rapport with her. Now we have to address nerves. When people are nervous, their blink rate goes up. In studies of U.S. presidential election debates, the candidate with the higher blink rate lost the election. The researchers who conducted these studies hypothesized that viewers must have subconsciously perceived the speaker's nervousness and developed a negative impression of the candidate. So monitor your blinking. There are two things that you can do with this information. One, of course, is to just get a grip on your nerves and be mindful of your blinking, as I said, but not so anxious and obsessed that you stare unblinkingly with big, crazy eyes. That's not good either. And the other is to hone in on how much she's blinking. If her eyes widen and she blinks rapidly after laying eyes on you, she's probably attracted to you. Let's go back to some other signs of wagging confidence. Those include things like it's hard to pay attention to each other, or physical feelings of nervousness like sweating, a queasy stomach, that tightness in your throat, and shifting around in your seated or standing position to change postures a lot. If you see her doing this, not so good. If you see these symptoms coming from her, she's probably losing interest. Now, if you notice yourself exhibiting these symptoms, get a hold of yourself before your nerves run her off. So what's the next step after all of this? I've given you a lot to think about. Well, the next step is food and music. There is no more widespread courtship ploy than offering food and entertainment. Around the world, men give women presents, provide them with food, and play music to set the mood. They're classics. Put those elements together and you have the nuts and bolts of a great date. So ask her out on one.